47 days alone, no food, no water, no shelter except burning rubble. A kitten weighing less than 2 pounds somehow survived in the deadliest square mile in Syria, while trained soldiers died around her every single day. When they finally found her, she should have been dead 3 weeks earlier. Her body should have shut down. Her organs should have failed. But she was alive, barely breathing, barely conscious, but alive. How does something that small survive that long in hell? Hit subscribe right now, because this story will destroy everything you think you know about survival and willpower. Comment below what country and city you are watching from. Smash that like button, because what you are about to hear needs to reach everyone. This is the story of Ash, the kitten who refused to die, and the Navy SEAL who broke every rule to save her. Raqqa, Syria, June 2017. The city was dying. Buildings collapsed daily from airstrikes. Bodies lay in streets because no one could retrieve them safely. The temperature hit 120 degrees by noon. Water was more valuable than ammunition. Everything that could burn had already burned. What remained was ash and concrete, and the smell of death that never went away, no matter how many times you tried to wash it off your skin. Chief Petty Officer David Marsh had been operating in Raqqa for 11 weeks. His team was embedded with coalition forces, clearing the city block by block, building by building, room by room. It was the kind of urban warfare that turned men into ghosts, where you stopped thinking about next week or next month and focused entirely on the next 5 seconds, where survival was measured in heartbeats, where every breath felt like borrowed time. Marsh was 34 years old, 14 years in the Navy, 6 deployments across 3 continents. He had seen things that made him stop sleeping normally, things that made him stop believing in easy answers or simple morality. He was good at his job, exceptionally good. He could clear a room in 4 seconds, could hit a target at 800 meters in crosswind, could operate for 72 hours without real sleep. But none of that training prepared him for what he found on June 23rd in a collapsed apartment building on the eastern edge of the city. His team was clearing what remained of a residential block. Most buildings were just shells, walls gone, floors pancaked on top of each other, rebar sticking out like broken bones. They were looking for weapons caches. Intelligence suggested insurgents had been storing ammunition in civilian buildings, using families as human shields. It was a common tactic, brutal but effective. Marsh entered what used to be a 4-story apartment complex. Now it was 2 stories of unstable rubble. The stairwell had partially collapsed. Each step could trigger the whole structure to come down. He moved slowly, carefully, testing every surface before committing weight. His team spread out behind him, 3 men, all experienced, all aware that this building could become their tomb if they made one wrong move. 2nd floor. What used to be someone's home. A kitchen with the sink still attached to a section of wall that stood alone in empty space. A child's bicycle crushed under a fallen beam. Family photos scattered across debris. Faces of people who were probably dead now. Marsh had learned to not look at the photos. Looking at them made it harder to function. Made it harder to keep the walls up in his mind that separated work from humanity. That is when he heard it. A sound so faint it was almost imaginary. A tiny cry, barely audible over the constant background noise of distant explosions and gunfire. He stopped, held up his fist. His team froze. They listened. The sound came again, weak, desperate, coming from under a collapsed section of floor. Marsh moved toward the sound. His team leader, Lieutenant Chen, said through the radio, "Chief, we need to keep moving. We are exposed here." Marsh ignored him. He had learned to trust instincts over protocol. Instincts kept you alive. Protocol got you killed when situations did not match the manual. He knelt beside the rubble pile. Listened. The crying was definitely coming from underneath. He started moving debris. Carefully, each piece could shift the weight distribution, could cause a collapse. Chen said, "Chief, what are you doing?" Marsh said, "There's something alive under here." Chen said, "It is probably a rat. We do not have time for this." Marsh said, "It is not a rat." He kept digging, moved a section of drywall, then a piece of broken furniture. then a chunk of concrete that took all his strength to shift. Underneath, in a gap between the fallen beams, was a kitten, gray and white, covered in dust so thick she looked like a ghost. Her eyes were open, but barely responsive. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, ribs visible through matted fur. Dehydrated, to the point where her skin did not bounce back when touched. She was dying, right there in front of him. Another casualty of a war she had nothing to do with. Marsh reached in. The space was tight. He had to remove his gloves. His bare hand touched her. She was hot, fever hot. Infection or heat stroke or both. She did not try to move, did not try to scratch or bite. Just lay there accepting whatever was about to happen. Marsh carefully pulled her out. She weighed almost nothing, like holding air, like holding something already dead. Chen said, "Chief, leave it. We have a mission." Marsh looked at the kitten in his hands, her eyes focused on his face. For just a moment, just a flicker of awareness, of recognition that something was trying to help. Chen said, "It is going to die anyway. You cannot save it. We do not have the resources." Marsh said, "I am not leaving her here." He tucked the kitten inside his plate carrier, felt the tiny heartbeat against his chest, felt how wrong it was that something this fragile existed in a place this violent. Chen said, "This is a mistake. You are compromising the mission for an animal," Marsh said. "The mission can wait 5 minutes." Chen did not argue further. You did not argue with a chief who had 14 years of combat experience. You trusted his judgment even when you disagreed. They cleared the rest of the building, found nothing, no weapons, no ammunition, just more destroyed lives and broken possessions. Marsh kept his hand on the kitten the entire time, felt her breathing get weaker, felt her heartbeat slow. She was dying in his hands. He could feel it happening, the life leaving her bit by bit. Back at the forward operating base, Marsh went straight to the medical tent. The corpsman was treating a local civilian with a shrapnel wound. Marsh said, "I need water and antibiotics." The corpsman looked at him, said, "Are you hit?" Marsh pulled out the kitten, said, "Not for me." The corpsman stared, said, "Chief, I cannot use military medical supplies on an animal. That is against regulations." Marsh said, "Then do not write it down." The corpsman looked at the kitten, looked at Marsh, sighed, said, "She needs fluids immediately, subcutaneous injection. I can show you how. But if anyone asks." This did not happen. Marsh said, "Understood." The corpsman prepared a syringe of sterile saline, showed Marsh how to tent the skin on the back of the kitten's neck, how to insert the needle, how to slowly inject the fluid. It formed a bulge under her skin. The corpsman said, "Do this for hours, small amounts. Too much will overwhelm her system." Marsh set up a box in his rack, lined it with a towel, placed the kitten inside. She looked even smaller in the clean towel, even more fragile. He gave her water from an eyedropper. She did not drink. He tried to get her to eat. She did not respond. He stayed with her for 3 hours, watching her breathe, counting each breath, willing her to keep fighting. Other team members came by. Some were angry, said it was unprofessional, said it showed poor judgment, said he was wasting resources. Others said nothing but brought supplies, a can of tuna, a small blanket, a heating pad someone had in their personal gear. Marsh did not care what anyone thought. He had made a choice. He would see it through. That night, the kitten stopped breathing twice. Both times, Marsh performed compressions with 2 fingers on her tiny chest. Both times, she started breathing again. Barely, but she started. Chen came by at 0 to 100, sat down, said, "She is going to die, Chief, you know that." Marsh said, "Maybe." Chen said, "Why are you doing this?" Marsh was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Because everything else here dies and I cannot stop it. But maybe I can stop this one thing from dying." Chen nodded. He understood. They all understood. You could not save the city. You could not save the civilians. You could not undo the damage. But maybe you could save one small life. Maybe that counted for something. Maybe that was enough to remember you were still human. Day 2. The kitten was still alive. Barely, but alive. Marsh got her to drink 3 drops of water. Small victory. Massive victory. She opened her eyes more, focused on him when he spoke. Marsh talked to her constantly, told her about his home in Virginia, told her about his daughter who was 7 years old, told her she had to keep fighting because giving up was not allowed. Day 3, the kitten ate one small piece of tuna. Took her 20 minutes to chew and swallow, but she ate. Marsh felt something shift in his chest. Hope, dangerous emotion. In a place like this, hope got you killed, but he felt it anyway. The corpsman checked on her, said, "I do not know how she is alive. By all medical logic, she should be dead." Marsh said, "She does not know medical logic." Day 4. Marsh had to go back out on patrol. He left the kitten with another team member. Gave explicit instructions about fluids and food. Worried the entire mission could not focus properly. Chen noticed, said, "Chief, you need to get your head right. You are distracted." Marsh said, "I am fine." Chen said, "You are not fine. You are thinking about a cat when you should be thinking about staying alive." He was right. Marsh knew he was right, but he could not stop. They returned 8 hours later. Marsh went straight to his rack. The kitten was sitting up, actually sitting, looking around. Her eyes were clearer. Her breathing was stronger. She looked at Marsh and made a sound, not a cry. A meow, soft, tentative, but a meow. Marsh sat down hard, felt his hands shaking, felt something crack inside his chest, felt tears he had been holding back for 11 weeks start to come. Chen saw it, did not say anything, just put a hand on Marsh's shoulder. Let him have the moment. Every man in that place was holding onto something, some memory or hope or reason to keep going. For Marsh right now, it was a gray and white kitten who refused to die. That is when the question started forming in his mind. A question that would change everything. A question that would force him to choose between duty and conscience. How do I get her out of here? Getting the kitten healthy was the easy part. Getting her out of Syria would be nearly impossible. Marsh knew this. The regulations were clear. No animals, no exceptions. Military transport was for personnel and essential equipment only. Bringing a cat back to the United States was not just against policy. It was potentially career-ending. Courts-martial had happened for less. But Marsh could not leave her. He had pulled her out of that rubble. He had kept her alive. She was his responsibility now. There was no version of this story where he left her behind to die in the street when coalition forces withdrew. That was not an option. So he started researching, started asking questions, started looking for loopholes. Day 7, the kitten had gained weight, not much, maybe half a pound. But it was progress. Her fur was cleaning up. The dust was gone. Underneath, she was gray with white paws and a white chest. Her eyes were bright green, alert, intelligent. She followed Marsh everywhere he went in the base, stayed close to his boots, slept curled against his leg at night. She had imprinted on him completely. Other soldiers started interacting with her, even the ones who had been angry at first. She became a mascot, a symbol of something good in a place with very little good. Men would stop by Marsh's rack just to pet her, to feel something soft, to remember that gentleness still existed somewhere. Command had not officially acknowledged her existence. As long as she stayed out of sight during inspections, they pretended not to know. Marsh named her Ash, for the city, for what she survived, for what she represented. Ash seemed to understand her name within days, would come when called, would look up when he said it. The corpsman said animals did not learn that fast, said it usually took weeks. Marsh said, "She is not a usual animal." Day 12. Marsh's team leader called him into a briefing, said, "Chief, we are rotating out in 3 weeks. Back to base in Kuwait, then home. I assume you have a plan for the cat." Marsh said, "I am working on it." The team leader said, "Working on it is not a plan. You cannot bring her on military transport. You know that." Marsh said, "I know." The team leader leaned forward, said, "There are organizations that help with this. Non-profits that specialize in getting animals out of war zones. Have you contacted any?" Marsh had. He had sent emails to 4 different organizations. Only one responded. They said it would cost $4,000. That included veterinary care, vaccinations, paperwork, and commercial transport. $4,000. Marsh had maybe $800 in savings. He had a daughter. He had a mortgage. He had car payments. $4,000 might as well have been $40,000. The team leader said, "How much do you have?" Marsh said, "Not enough." The team leader nodded, said, "Let me talk to the team, no promises, but let me talk to them." Marsh said, "I cannot ask people to pay for this." The team leader said, "You are not asking, I am asking. There's a difference." That night, the team leader went to each member individually, explained the situation, explained the cost, asked if anyone wanted to contribute. He was not demanding. He was not pressuring. He was just asking. By morning, he had collected $1,800. Men who barely knew Marsh, men who had their own financial problems, men who gave anyway because they understood what Ash represented. Chen contributed $300, said, "My wife is going to kill me, but I watched you bring that cat back from dead. That is worth something." Another team member contributed $100, another $100. Amounts varied, but the message was consistent. They wanted to help. They wanted this one story to have a good ending. Marsh was overwhelmed. He tried to refuse, tried to say it was too much. Chen said, "Shut up, Chief. Just say thank you and let us do this." Marsh said thank you. His voice cracked when he said it. Chen pretended not to notice. With the team contributions and his own savings, Marsh had $2,600, still $1,400 short. The organization said that was not enough. They needed full payment upfront, no exceptions, no payment plans. Marsh understood. They were a non-profit. They operated on thin margins, but understanding did not change the math. Day 15, Marsh was running out of time, out of options. He posted about it on a private military forum, explained the situation, asked for advice. Did not ask for money, just advice. Within 6 hours, the post had gone viral within the military community. People started sharing it, started commenting, started offering to help. A retired Marine from Colorado sent $100, said his daughter loved cats, said this story mattered. Army veteran from Texas sent $100, said he had been in Fallujah in 2004 and knew exactly what it felt like to find something innocent. In hell, donations came in $20 at a time, 50, 100, amounts that individually seemed small, but collectively were changing everything. Day 17, Marsh had $3,800, $200 short. So close. The organization said that was close enough. They would cover the difference. They would start the process immediately. Marsh needed to get Ash to a veterinarian in Kuwait for the initial health check and vaccinations. That meant smuggling her out of Syria on a military transport. That meant breaking regulations. That meant risking everything. Chen said, "I will do it." Marsh said, "You do not have to." Chen said, "I know I do not have to. I want to. You have done enough. Let me handle this part." Marsh said, "If you get caught." Chen interrupted, said, "I will not get caught. Trust me." Day 19, Marsh's team was flying out to Kuwait. Ash was hidden in Chen's personal duffel bag. They had sedated her lightly with medication from the corpsman, just enough to keep her calm, not enough to be dangerous. Chen carried the bag like it was nothing, walked through the loading area, onto the helicopter. No one checked, no one asked. Personal bags were not inspected on outgoing flights, only incoming. The flight was 90 minutes. Marsh sat across from Chen, made eye contact once. Chen nodded slightly. Everything was fine. They landed in Kuwait, walked off the helicopter, through the staging area, to the barracks. Still no one checked. Chen set the bag down in an empty room, opened it. Ash climbed out, looked around, seemed completely unbothered by the journey. Marsh exhaled for what felt like the first time in 3 hours, said, "That was the stupidest thing we have ever done." Chen said, "That was not even top 10. Remember Mosul?" Marsh laughed. Chen was right. They had done much stupider things. Day 20, the veterinarian examined Ash, said she was healthy enough to travel, said it was remarkable given where she came from, gave her vaccinations, started the paperwork, said the flight would be in 10 days. Marsh would be home in Virginia by then. Ash would follow 2 weeks later. That was the plan. Day 23, Marsh's team flew back to the United States. Marsh left Ash with the organization in Kuwait. It was the hardest thing he had done. In months, harder than combat, harder than carrying wounded teammates, harder than anything, because he was leaving her. He had promised to save her, and now he was leaving her with strangers in a foreign country. The organization coordinator said, "She will be fine. We do this all the time. She will be in Virginia before you know it." Marsh nodded, did not trust his voice. Ash looked at him from the carrier, did not understand why he was leaving. Meowed. That sound broke something in him. Chen said, "Come on, Chief, we have to go." Marsh walked away. Did not look back. Could not look back. On the flight home, he barely spoke, stared out the window, thought about all the things that could go wrong. Flight delays, paperwork issues, health complications. He had gotten her this far. What if she did not make it the last mile? Day 32. Marsh was home in Virginia, back with his wife and daughter. His daughter asked about Syria, asked if it was scary. Marsh said sometimes, did not say how often, did not say that he still heard explosions when he closed his eyes, did not say that he checked corners of rooms without thinking, did not say that normal life felt strange now. His wife asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. She did not believe him but did not push. She knew how this worked, knew he needed time, knew he would talk when he was ready. What he did talk about was Ash. Told her the whole story, showed her pictures. His wife said, "So we are getting a cat." Marsh said, "I know it is a lot to ask." She said, "It is not a lot to ask. You saved her life. Now she is part of our family." Day 40. Marsh got the call. Ash was in New York, cleared customs, would be in Virginia the next day. He could pick her up at the cargo facility at the airport. Marsh did not sleep that night, kept checking his phone, kept worrying something would go wrong at the last second. Day 41. Marsh drove to the airport, went to the cargo facility, signed paperwork. They brought out a carrier. He heard meowing before he saw her. Loud, insistent, angry meowing. The handler said, "She has been very vocal." Marsh opened the carrier. Ash looked at him, stopped meowing, climbed out, rubbed against his hand, started purring. The handler said, "I have never seen a cat calm down that fast." Marsh said, "She knows me." He picked her up. She curled against his chest. Same position as when he found her. Same spot. Like no time had passed. Like the months and miles and impossibility of it all meant nothing. She was here. She was safe. He had kept his promise. But the story was not over. Because 3 months later, something happened that changed everything. Something that made Marsh realize saving Ash had saved him too. Marsh thought coming home would fix things. Thought leaving the war zone would turn off whatever switch had been flipped in his brain. It did not work that way. He was home physically, but part of him was still in Iraq, still clearing buildings, still listening for sounds that meant danger, still operating on adrenaline that had nowhere to go. He could not sleep, would lie in bed for hours staring at the ceiling. When he did sleep, he dreamed about Syria, about the building where he found Ash, about all the other buildings where he had not found anything except death. He would wake up sweating, heart racing, taking minutes to remember where he was. His wife would wake up too, would put her hand on his arm, would not say anything, just be there. During the day, he was functional, went through motions, played with his daughter, did yard work, went to the grocery store, but everything felt muted, like he was watching his life through thick glass, like he was not fully present. His wife noticed, his daughter noticed, he could see them noticing, could see them trying to figure out how to help, could see them getting frustrated when nothing worked. The Navy offered counseling. Marsh went twice, sat in an office with a therapist who asked how he was feeling. Marsh said fine. The therapist said, "You are clearly not fine." Marsh said, "I am handling it." The therapist said, "Nightmares and hypervigilance and emotional detachment are not handling it. That is post-traumatic stress disorder. That is your brain trying to process trauma." Marsh said, "I know what it is. Knowing does not fix it." He did not go back. 3 months after coming home, Marsh was getting worse instead of better, snapping at his wife over small things, avoiding social situations, drinking more than he should. Not a lot, but enough that his wife mentioned it, enough that he noticed. He was sliding somewhere he did not want to go. He knew it. He did not know how to stop it. Then one night, it broke. He was lying in bed, could not sleep, could not stop his brain, could not stop replaying everything. His wife was asleep next to him. His daughter was asleep down the hall. Everything should have been perfect. He was home. He was safe. His family was safe. But he felt like he was suffocating. He got up, went downstairs, sat on the couch in the dark, put his head in his hands, felt everything pressing down, felt 14 years of combat pressing down, felt every decision he made pressing down, felt every person he could not save pressing down. He was drowning in his own home, surrounded by people who loved him, drowning anyway. That is when Ash jumped onto the couch. She had been sleeping in his daughter's room, must have heard him get up. She walked across the couch, climbed onto his lap, looked at his face. She had done this before, multiple times, but this time felt different. She pressed her head against his chest, started purring, loud, steady, like a motor. Marsh put his hand on her back, felt her warmth, felt her breathing, felt the purring vibrating through his hand. She stayed there, did not move, just pressed against him, purring, existing, being alive. He thought about the building in Iraq, thought about pulling her out of the rubble, thought about how close she came to dying, thought about how she survived 47 days alone. Something shifted in his chest, not fixed, not healed, but shifted. He realized something. Ash survived, against every odd, against all logic, against medical probability. She survived because she refused to stop fighting, because giving up was not an option, because something in her decided that living was worth the pain. Marsh was crying, did not realize it at first, just felt wetness on his face, felt his shoulders shaking. Ash did not move, did not get scared, just stayed there, pressing against him, purring. He held her, held onto her like she was the only real thing in the world. Maybe she was. Maybe she was the only thing connecting him to the person he used to be. His wife found them like that, came downstairs, saw him crying, saw Ash on his lap. She sat down next to him, did not say anything, just put her arm around him. They sat like that for an hour. Marsh cried. His wife held him. Ash purred. Eventually, Marsh said, "I do not know how to be normal anymore." His wife said, "You do not have to be normal. You just have to be here, be present. That is enough." After that night, things got better slowly, not fixed, not perfect, but better. Marsh started talking more, started therapy again with a different therapist, started being honest about what he was feeling instead of pretending he was fine, started letting his wife and daughter help instead of pushing them away. Ash was part of all of it. She seemed to know when he was struggling, would appear, would press against him, would purr until his breathing slowed. His therapist asked about Ash, asked why she helped. Marsh said, "I think it is because I saved her and she knows it." The therapist said, "Or maybe you saved each other. Maybe pulling her out of that building gave you something to care about, something to fight for. Maybe keeping her alive reminded you how to keep yourself alive." Marsh thought about that, thought maybe the therapist was right. 6 months after coming home, Marsh was functional again, still had bad days, still had nightmares sometimes, still struggled with crowds and loud noises, but he was managing. He was present with his family. He was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing, and Ash was there through all of it, sleeping on his bed, following him around the house, being exactly what he needed when he needed it. His daughter loved Ash, would carry her around like a baby, would tell everyone at school about the cat that survived a war, would make up stories about Ash being a superhero. Marsh would listen to these stories, would smile, would think about how his daughter had no idea how close the real story was to her superhero version. 1 year after bringing Ash home, Marsh got a message from Chen. Chen asked how he was doing. Marsh said better. Chen said, "And the cat?" Marsh said, "She is good. She is family now." Chen said, "I am glad that worked out. Glad we did that." Marsh said, "Me too, more than you know." Chen said, "I looked into it after we got back. Did some research. Ash survived 47 days in Raqqa during the heaviest fighting of the entire campaign. Temperatures hit 120 degrees, no food sources, contaminated water, constant bombardment. The statistical probability of a kitten surviving that is essentially zero. Marsh said, but she did survive. Chen said, yeah, she did. Makes you think. Marsh knew what Chen meant. Makes you think about resilience, about willpower, about the things we survive when we have a reason to survive. Ash survived because something in her refused to quit. Marsh survived his own darkness because something in him refused to quit. Maybe they were not that different. Maybe survival was always about finding one reason to keep going, one small reason, even if that reason was just a connection to another living thing that needed you. Now, 3 years later, Ash is a normal house cat. She sleeps in sunbeams. She plays with toy mice. She begs for treats. She does all the things normal cats do. But sometimes Marsh watches her and remembers. Remembers pulling her out of rubble. Remembers keeping her alive against all odds. Remembers bringing her home. Remembers that night on the couch when she saved him by just being there. People ask Marsh why he risked so much for a cat. Why he spent money he did not have. Why he broke regulations. Why he made it his mission when he had so many other things to worry about. He never has a good answer. Never has something that sounds rational or logical. Because it was not rational. It was not logical. It was just necessary. His wife understands. She says, you saved her because you needed to save something. Because in a place where everything was destruction, you found one small thing you could protect. That mattered. That matters. Marsh thinks she is probably right. Thinks saving Ash was about more than just Ash. Was about proving to himself that good things could still happen. That effort mattered. That caring mattered. The organization that helped bring Ash home reached out a few months ago. Said they wanted to feature her story. Said it would help raise awareness. Help fund other rescues. Marsh agreed. Did an interview. Told the whole story. The interview went viral. Thousands of people saw it. Hundreds of comments. People saying they were inspired. Saying they donated. Saying stories like this give them hope. One comment stuck with Marsh. Someone wrote, this is not really a story about a cat. This is a story about refusing to let darkness win. About finding light in the worst places. About caring even when caring seems pointless. That person got it. That person understood exactly what this story was really about. Marsh still has hard days. Still struggles with what he saw. What he did. What he could not prevent. Therapy helps. Time helps. His family helps. But Ash helps too. She is a living reminder that impossible things happen. That survival is possible. That connections matter. She is 3 pounds of gray and white fur that represents something much bigger than herself. Was Marsh right to risk everything for Ash? Was it worth the money and the stress and the broken regulations and the possibility of career consequences? Or was it just emotional decision-making in a traumatic environment? The Navy never officially reprimanded him. His command never said anything. Maybe they understood. Maybe they knew that in war, you grab onto whatever keeps you human. Whatever reminds you why you are fighting. For Marsh, that was a dying kitten in a pile of rubble. Ash survived 47 days alone in hell. Marsh survived 14 years of war. Now they are both home, both healing, both living proof that survival is possible even when it should not be. That caring is worth it even when the odds are impossible. That sometimes the things we save end up saving us right back. You. Tell me if that was worth it.